So it's the top of the hour, so I'd like to welcome all of you to today's session. Hello.
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 Emmy.
All right. So a quick check-in. How are you doing? We were already chatting, but say hello, all of you.
Hi.
Hey.
Nice to see everyone. It's a gorgeous day on this 24th of May. I'm not quite sure how the time has just kept marching, but whoa, we're getting to solstice.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. It's nice to be here and see everyone.
I'm putting my earrings on. That's my check-in.
Good. I
They've
don't
got
have
little
any.
parts on them.
I don't have any earrings.
Well, we could start the meeting out with a hat instead of ending with one.
Yep.
Hi.
Hi.
So what else? I don't have anything to say, but I'm fine.
You started the call?
Yes.
Watch out the way.
Hello, Lila and Tim.
The voices of.
Hello. Sorry, we're just getting ourselves together.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, Lila. You're outside.
Yeah, it's glorious.
That's cool.
Summer is here.
Yeah. Wonderful. And hello, Joachim.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi. Well, maybe we should just get started. Today the theme is feeling the story. The idea is that somebody will tell a little story that somehow is important in their, has been important or is important in their life. A story of transformation or formation or whatever we call it, that preferably has a bit of emotional content. And then the rest of us will try to feel into that or add our piece to it or try to emphasize and see where that goes. So in order to do that, it's probably a good idea that we get in a bit more of a feeling mode and contact with our body and our surroundings. So just take the time to feel the ground under you if your feet are in any way close to the ground, or feel the seat under you. Feel your own breath. Take a few deep breaths. And now we need a bit of a story. Does anybody have a suitable story from your life to tell?
I could speak about my present hosts and the contrasts and some of that. I could start with that. I think there's a lot of feeling in the space. You all know that I've been moving around for a good long time, and I felt that the movement is really to move me into the company of people that would collaborate and also really be able to hear everything that I have to share in a good way. And I feel like I found that in good portion where I am. One of the reasons I was moved to share it is that I'm aware that there's undercurrents for me about safety and, you know, even getting adjusted to that I'm with my people. I've had that experience in my life. I feel like I have it with you, you know, but to have it in a place where I can be. And I came out to Colorado with an offer that I would have sanctuary, and it felt like it was anything but I kept having to find it within myself. And I feel like it's been a good thing. But it's also touched me at a level of, wow, you know, this is not a unique experience that I'm going through. This is going on for humanity, this sense of how do we feel safe with one another, and how do we can't really address it for the intellect, you know, it has to be gone within, and also choiceful with the people to be there for one another, and to recognize that this actually needs to be attended to. We can't jump over it. So that's very much going on. And for instance, a button got pushed because my host is having her 75th birthday this weekend, and I always see connections. So I was like, wow, it'd be so neat to be able to stay through it. But there were moments where I didn't know if that would happen. And they chose to include me in their extended family to stretch in terms of the space and all. And it really is like trying on new clothes to get used to it. And so the feelings, I've had some times where my tummy's gotten tight, and I know that I'm almost like I go into a protective thing in my body, and I'm going, wow, no, let the feelings move through, let it, they've been there, that, you know, let them move through, don't make them into something. And it's a stretch. So and good, I think it's a good thing. But, you know, so thanks for hearing me.
So I notice when you're talking, I try to sort of sense at the same time what does it feel to feel safe, or I translate it into my own experiences. Like sometimes if I'm with people where I don't have to particularly work hard at how to present myself or doing the right thing, or where other people sort of cover for me if there's something I don't do, where I feel safe to sort of disconnect or not have to be on all the time or not have to be interesting or anything. So for me, it's I feel it in my body that is sort of fairly calm. I don't have there's a lack of attention to sort of try to do something. I'm more feeling calm and at ease in my belly, kind of thing. That's how it feels like to me. And I notice at the same time that I don't have it quite as much as I would like to. I would like to feel like that all the time, but I don't. I sometimes feel like that here, but not even. I mean, I feel a little bit like, I'm a little attached to how this works out and so forth. So it's not just that I can completely feel that I'll just be myself and that's all I need to do. I feel a little more tense than that. I'd like that to be different.
Yeah, I felt that at the beginning of the call today when people came with all sorts of activities and, you know, things that you arrive like, okay, here it comes, and that puts pressure on you somehow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing it, Fleming.
Yeah, so I love the way you move around and stay with friends and strangers, Frankie. It reminds me a bit of these good old college exchange programs, right? So when I was young, going to some family abroad, stay there for a few weeks and just getting to know them, getting to know the culture. And that stopped, right? So why did that stop? And why couldn't we continue doing that, right? So that's a really interesting way of diving into this and see what
When do you want me
out.
to come?
Right.
That's a thing when we go on record, right?
Right. So it's other things that somehow took over at some point, right? So now you're so committed into, I don't know what it is, but hard to break out of that frame anymore.
Yeah. I've adopted that it's one big world. I started an Art of Living call out of being on this call because I realized that I had bought into an idea of, gee, my people aren't all in one place, and so there's a missing. And then I thought, well, look at that, look at all of us. We're connecting wherever we are in the world. So I don't have to buy into that idea. In fact, if I embrace it, maybe it'll move me around some more, but where I don't feel either ors or missings. Yeah. Thanks for saying something. And really, truly, I'll come to New York. Sometimes feelings are also like, wow, I don't know if I really signed up for that. Like that happens when I move in with people. Like, what did it bring up for you when I said, oh, I might come? It seemed funny on the surface, but did it bring up things too? We get used to things in many ways.
So I'm wondering how we can go sort of a little deeper into this. I feel we're a little bit sort of on the surface of something. I'm a tiny bit bored. I'd like us to sort of get deeper into what I don't know. I mean, Frankie Lee brought up the feeling of sort of when you're safe or when you're with your people somehow. I don't know, just wanted to express that I didn't feel it quite going anywhere yet, and I wanted to go deeper with it.
I can go a bit deeper. Yes. A story about whitewater rafting in Costa Rica. A couple of years back. So in Costa Rica, there are many big rivers where you can go whitewater rafting, big rafts, right? And they have these different classes of rivers. Class 3, class 4 is kind of very strong. Class 5, I really try to avoid because they're dangerous, right? So really things can happen there. But so me and my family went to Costa Rica and did the whitewater rafting on a class 4 river once. And my son was about, 12 years old or so at that time. So they allowed him to come on board. And me, my wife, and then 3 other people on the same raft, right? So it's a group of rafts that go down the river. That was the Rio Pacuare in Costa Rica. So on one of these trips, then, weather was pretty good, but had rain before, and was very strong. The river was close to a class 5 river. And so we went through a couple of these, rapids. And suddenly, one of these rapids, my wife fell overboard, and my son was in another raft actually, so he was outside. But I fell overboard. She fell overboard. She drifted to the side of the river, but I was pulled right into the middle where they had these vortexes, right? I was pulled into that, and I was pulled underwater, and really, sort of sucked to the ground of the river. And then what happened was a strangest thing. So I what I recall, right? I sat there and suddenly seeing all these colors, noticing the beautiful colors that are swirling around me, right? The blue, shades of green. And I was just sitting there. I don't know how long I was sitting there. I was just being there, being present, nothing else. And time just went away. And so I did that. And then after a while, I think I must have thought, okay, I can't do this, much longer. I got to do something here. So I don't know, my thinking brain maybe switched back on. And I said, okay, let's direction upwards, right? So go up there, reached upwards, and then suddenly, touch some other, rafts. And the guys noticed me and then pulled me up into the raft and pulled me in. And then I suddenly realized what all happened, and looked around and tried to reorient myself. But that was, I don't know, a cool experience afterwards. It was really like that's the point where you really see time standing still, and the clarity around you is just amazing. That this is possible, and then suddenly you get back into life. Thanks God, nothing else about that. So my little story.
My initial response was just thinking about what it was like for your son to watch it, so you have these entirely different realities going on, like, oh, my mother and my father, they just went in the water and I'm someplace else. How was it for him?
Yeah, for him it was, he was really scared, of course. The other guides took care of him, of course. But it all happened so fast. That's the thing, and yet, I felt for me like an hour almost, but I later realized that was maybe, seconds, half a minute, that's it. And then everybody was back and then continuing down the river. So time is such a relative concept, really. It's fascinating.
Well, the people, does anybody else want to talk?
I could sort of relate in terms of the time and experiencing something out of the ordinary. Many years back, I was given something very special. I will not name what it is. And swallowed it and went out. We were up at a cottage with some other friends, all professionals, professors, etc. And I sat by the shore, sort of in a squatting position, for what I thought it was, maybe 5-10 minutes, just enjoying the scenery. And when I returned back, everyone saying, "Oh, you've been there for a long time." I said, "Why?" I just went there. It says, "No, you've been there for the last 8 hours." So I had completely lost the sense of timing. I was just mesmerized by the water moving, the glistening, the trees, and the birds singing. Whatever, I was totally absorbed. There was no longer time and space, I guess. But in my mind, I've been there only for a few minutes. It was a very enjoyable, relaxing experience. However, that's the only time that happened. I didn't want to pursue that avenue. Once I realized what had happened, I said, I don't know. Do I want to go any further with this? But it's something I'll never forget.
Go ahead, Heiner.
Because we looked into near-death experience. When people try to speak up when they never dared, where we were all really like this. At the Rub al Khali in Saudi Arabia, where you have trust with adults, 5 cars, 5 families, some have children, some have plenty, and the others, how they behave and get saved.
We're having trouble
I
with
was
your
never able
sound,
to
Heiner.
count for 15 or 20 years, and then sound is bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, your sound is almost not coming through at all. Little tiny bits, but almost nothing, and then maybe a few words.
So you see, I'm breaking another time.
It sounds like such an interesting story. We wanted to hear it.
Well, it's interesting because I'll just go to a little bit of what I'm feeling in my body. I feel, I'm still back with Frankie's story in a way, and I feel a sense of disjointedness and kind of hopping. I'm not quite getting the sense of coherence. To go back to Frankie's story in terms of what I feel in my body, it's really uncomfortable in terms of not knowing where, in identifying with Frankie's path at the moment. It's really uncomfortable in my body to not know where I'm going to be and to be reliant on the kindness of others. I feel, so just in terms of how that feels in my body, it feels really uncomfortable. And I have my own places where I don't know where necessarily support is going to come from in my life. And so I can identify with that. I can feel what that is to not have a clear sense of where the next thing might be coming from. And so I just wanted to, I have a sense of this, what I understood of this session, just to kind of go into a tiny bit of a meta level, is that we were going to feel what it was in people's stories and try and kind of map that across and feel into that story. So I feel really uncomfortable, and I feel not in a way that I'm uncomfortable with feeling. I'm fine with feeling uncomfortable, but I just wanted to really feel with all of us and invite us to go a little bit deeper in terms of feeling the stories we're feeling. I couldn't, in Joachim's story, I could feel I have some curiosity around that time stretching. But I also was still kind of stuck in Frankie's story. And in fact, with Simon's, I couldn't hear much of what he said because I was still holding what I was experiencing and not necessarily wanting to just move on to something else and skip along the surface, but rather go deeper.
Well, I went now into a safer Wi-Fi area. You see, the thing which happened was that all this trust was gone. That people really were just trying to survive themselves, and that you go through various pictures, like the cartographer of consciousness space. When you're really zoomed out, you're finally in a tunnel and then in a vortex, and then you're gone. But what it is when you come back, and how you see that the trust in people, the trust in 10 children finally realizing it's a survival story, all comes together, and then how you suddenly survive through a miracle I created. This is so deep. So I'm feeling like family. So I talk to you about it. Otherwise, I was always trying in a walk in the woods, and then I was weeping. But Tammy, it's so good to see you, and I hope I can be heard now.
No, I want to respond to what Tammy said, because I felt left also. You know, I think the nature of the call, sometimes it becomes a like, whose turn is it? Has everybody gone? And, you know, we're all conditioned by that. And it is a rich field to explore, you know, how stretching beyond what we're used to really actually requires discomfort. You know, how much do we allow, you know, to be further out there in life? I did relate to what you were saying, because I felt like in a way it was also saying sometimes we create danger and we have a place that's a higher place to be, that's also available to us, and we might find out that that's also so, you know. But on the feeling level, my being in people's homes really allows things to come up, because we do socially present so much in life, even when we don't realize it, you know. And at home, people tend to it's kind of the last bastion, so it is the place that things come down, whether we allow it or it's simply, you know, it's got to come out. And it's a stretch. It's a real stretch to not fall back into old patterns and what we're used to, and to keep exploring. And that is why things are working here, is that each of the people in the household has gone very deep and is very dedicated to being raw, being willing to be raw. So Tammy, I appreciated that a lot. I appreciated that you brought it all the way back and didn't just let it keep going and, you know, feeling it under the surface. And I hope that this call allows more of that, and that it becomes freeing in the process.
I wanted to offer my experience of just what's happening. I feel really awkward, and I'm not really even sure how to be in this conversation, because I'm not understanding how to connect in. You know, the stories, like there were 3 specific stories that I heard, that may be related but not quite bridging. And so where it goes with the theme, I'm asking for clarification and for someone to perhaps demonstrate really what they had intent, or what was intended for the experiment, because I feel a little lost. If we're supposed to be deep, I feel like people are sharing a story, which I think the stories are good stories. But again, I just feel really awkward and not knowing how to connect. You know, what to connect to. And it may be that Frankie Lee's story, to begin with, I'm not sure of the context of her story, of your story, Frankie Lee. And so I just want to be in the space with knowing where. Tammy said she wanted to go deeper. Fleming said he wanted to go deeper. Maybe the 2 of you could demonstrate for us what that means, the 2 of you, when you say that in relationship to what Frankie Lee said, or in relationship to what Joaquin said, or in relationship to what Simon said. Because then once I see it demonstrated, I'll move into the flow.
Thank you very much, Letitia. Well, I don't know necessarily how to do that. I'll go on to you, Tam, in a moment. I just wanted to say, well, my intention was that there would be a story, that it would be sort of a simple turning point in somebody's life, and we could sort of feel into that and get something similar. So, I think from, yeah, Tim?
I think I can help here.
Go ahead.
It feels to me, I'm also feeling a lot of discomfort, like my chest is thundering, my stomach is kind of churning around. But I feel like we are experiencing Frankie Lee's story. I feel like her life at the moment, or certainly how I imagine myself in that life, feels very disjointed, feels very uncomfortable, feels hard to sort of land somewhere. I somehow feel like we're just, as a group, expressing that story somehow. I don't know if this is Frankie Lee's experience, but it's like all these different places being visited in these different situations, and you know, maybe they don't make sense, or things are a little awkward, or they don't turn out quite how they sort of seemed they would in the beginning. Maybe people suddenly have regrets about inviting someone into their home. You know, all of that, I sort of feel all of that in my body somehow. So I think we are doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling, sorry, Joachim, I'm feeling also the sort of awkwardness, or something is a little disjointed about it, but maybe that fits with what we're talking about. Like I had some expectations of maybe a different sort of story. So Frankie's story threw me off a little bit. Like I would sort of expecting something from way in the past where sort of some transformation happened and it was very dramatic kind of thing. So Frankie Lee then gives sort of the story of where she's at in her life right now. It didn't fit my model, but that's what happened. So that's what's here. And it might very well be that what we are experiencing sort of connects with that it's hard to make it a very clear thing with an easy solution to, or something. Still makes me uncomfortable.
So let's feel into this discomfort, and maybe that's the route to going deeper.
I wouldn't call it discomfort, Tim. I call it. I would say we resonate differently to these stories, right? So I resonated with Frankie's story entirely differently than you and Tammy did. You know, for me, it recalled past memories, you know, of some way back, you know, scholarly exchanges with families. For Tammy, it was present. You know, it was what happened to her actually right now in a similar situation, but not in a way that's explorative, more like survival, right? So what do I do next? What I heard out of Frankie's story is exploration is just finding new ways of getting into conversations with new people, with new friends, which I find, you know, is an interesting aspect. But obviously it resonates really differently to other people. And that's the piece I love from our today's conversation here, right? To see that kind of thing coming out of our conversation here.
So to perhaps sit in that uncomfortability a little bit, one of the things that I witnessed was that Frankie, you know, asked Wahim directly to come to stay in New York, and Wahim didn't really respond. And so these are kind of the little pieces of politeness around how it is that we have an exchange. And at the same time, that need of Frankie Lee's to be met and held and taken care of in certain senses is uncomfortable. And it's uncomfortable to ask in a group. And I just want to be, I just want to share that that's part of what I witnessed, and part of the discomfort in my body is having witnessed that ask, the non-response, and then us as a group not, well, I'm taking this opportunity to flag that up.
And
I think there are so many conventions and codices, and so when we really try to subsume and resonate in a group, I think it's a very steep challenge we are trying here, now.
And I agree that that's a difficult challenge. Let me say again, but like my expectation was maybe something that's sort of easy, like some past emotional transformation, and then we resonate with that. So somebody presents something that's in part a problem or a need, or asking a little bit for solutions or doing something about it. So it's a little uncomfortable because we might have different ways of dealing with that. I mean, some real things need to be dealt with, and that might be necessary. But what happens then if we don't really want to go that far? If I don't necessarily want to do anything about that, then how do we deal with that? Do we move on to the next topic, or do we stay uncomfortable? Like, what do we do? So it's tricky when we're presented with a little bit of an sort of unsolvable problem, or it's not necessarily unsolvable, but I mean, can we right here in this hour sort of respond appropriately to Frankie Lee's situation? Or do we just take it as sort of an example of something to feel and sort of move on and wrap up kind of thing, which it doesn't provide a satisfactory outcome for Frankie Lee necessarily. I don't know. At the same time, it's something real. That's Frankie Lee's situation. It's not just something theoretical. So how do we deal with that? The uncomfortableness is kind of tangible.
You know, I love how it's going. I feel like Tim really, you know, like nailed it when he said that we actually are experiencing it, because this is, you know, what we find when we spend intimate time with other people is that we have cultural ways in place that we didn't realize were that. You know, it might be obvious in the world where there's very, you know, specific cultural differences and things, but the nuance of how it shows up and just how we go through our days and how we relate to one another is a big part of the process. You asked for the context. I've been on the road for 6 years and over 150 homes. And, you know, on the surface, you don't know, but once you get in there, it becomes, you know, the things that show up can be somebody's wounding from years ago. So it is those stories, Fleming, in a way, that are always present with us, you know. And when do they send us to what about inquiry? Like, oh, what is that for you? You know, to even ask means, oh, wow, I just asked, here, there it comes, you know. How can we be with it and not feel like we have to fix something? I feel like for me, I'm living in multiple dimensions, and how do I reconcile the dimensions? Because I know the possibility of what's present for us, which is a kind of lovely opportunity to be relaxed and real and with each other and be in co-creativity. And so much of the field right now on the planet, maybe as transitional people, gets occupied with all of our, you know, kind of organizing around our discomforts and our differences, instead of going, wow, we're here together. How do we just have it work? Which I feel like this call is about. I'm actually appreciating the different roles people are playing and the things that are showing up. Not about me, but about the fabric, which is the only reason I would bring the story up, is that it really is in who we are with one another, that, and not going back to the person. It's not the hardest thing was 2 places ago that I stayed, was everything seemed sort of familial, and then this gal, older woman, and it was great because she realized she really wanted to have more time with her husband, and a lot of things were going on in the household, but she said, your problem is not our problem. And I tell you, my body went into shock for 24 hours. I had a migraine headache. I had a car accident, you know, and I realized, wow, this has been building up for a long time, and it's not just in me. So that's why I felt to bring it up, not like it's I need to solve my problem, but that it's in the fabric of our relational world, and it presents an opportunity.
I fully resonated with Frankie because I feel like decades on the road. And when Joachim then told his survival story, I couldn't hold. I'm sorry that the story was broken, but anyway, I'm too emotional about it anyway. So anyway, I'm happy with the situation now, and over for now.
I do love what you just said, Frankie, especially around the notion of how can we be with it, not trying to fix it, right? We don't have to see it as a problem, right? Just be with it. It's there. It's a little bit what I call the Buddha mind. That there's really nothing that can disturb you. Why? You know, unless you're in real physical danger, right? But otherwise, it's you that creates the problem, really. And just be with it, and you know, and then get into a space where you can create a safe zone for everyone to embrace it, take it in. I think that's what we need to strive for.
Well, so what is a Shiva mind and what is a Buddha mind?
What was the first part of that? What is a what mind and what is a Buddha mind? And also, Heiner, there's someone standing behind you that looks like they might want to get your attention.
Yeah, bring her closer.
No, it is Srikala from Pondicherry in India. I introduced her in the beginning. Hi. And I just wanted to give it an idea. It's the Buddha mind, it's the Shiva mind, it's the Guru mind, or whatever. How do we bridge the mindsets beyond the need to agree? That is my challenge.
Well, for me, it's the challenge also, like sort of the dissonance between, are we just going to sort of be with it? Like if we're just here together on the screen and somebody has a problem, we can just look at it. Well, that's not really a problem. We're just sort of present with it. We're like really here on the screen with you, and we sort of feel it, kind of thing. But that's not the same as being present with you. I mean, it's a different thing to be present to listen to Frankie Lee or hosting her for a week in your house. That's two different things. Like, it's a lot easier to just sort of be present on the screen, but that doesn't mean, you know, you want to show up, and if she does have a problem, help her fix that problem. It doesn't mean it's a problem, but I mean, are you willing to show up to that degree? And should you, and is that a problem if you don't want to? But I mean, that's some of the sort of friction I notice that, I mean, do I really want to? I don't know. I mean, and it should be okay for us to have different choices about it, but it gives definitely a certain uncomfortableness because we might be willing to listen to something, but not do anything about it. And we might have a hard time maybe admitting or saying directly that that's what we feel, or that's, or even feeling good about that. And I don't have an answer for the right way of doing that.
Somehow, Frankie Lee's story is like a metaphor for the world right now. The world is like sleeping on 150 different couches over 6 years. And doesn't, you know, it's kind of all over the place and creating difficult situations for itself. And it just somehow, this just feels like how it is right now in the world. This call somehow feels like how the world is right now. Yeah, and it's such an interesting contrast. When I say the world, I mean the world of people, because this world feels very different today where I am. It feels very much together and present and in a state of bliss, really. It's just a beautiful day here.
I just wanted to offer that when I heard Frankie Lee speaking, I didn't hear it as a problem, her presenting a problem. And my discomfort had to do with my own awareness of wondering how would I relate in this conversation to what Frankie Lee is stating. Some of you know that, and you might all know, I've lived a gift economy since 1996 for the most part, which means I don't draw a salary, I don't charge for my services, and people open up their homes and I stay with them. And so I've stayed at several different places at the good graces of the people that I live with. So I can very much relate to what Frankie Lee is experiencing in terms of wanting to find a deep connection there. My reticence for actually engaging in the conversation directly about Frankie Lee's experience was wanting to try to understand the context, not just of Frankie Lee, but also of this community, because our levels of intimacy, you know, to speak for other people without really knowing your experience feels, and trying to include me in sort of an extended awareness doesn't feel authentic to me, because I'm not feeling connected to Frankie's story as a metaphor for life, you know, but I'm feeling that Tim is experiencing that, and that he has a direct experience with that for himself. And so this way of getting deeper into a story to be personal, you know, I have this image in my head of me wanting to actually connect, and then not knowing really with the group as I sort of step into this pool of awareness that Frankie Lee has put on the table, so to speak, how that actually connects out the rest of the group. So for me, my resistance or my reticence was, at what level of intimacy will I be speaking into the group? Am I willing to risk? But what stopped me was me assuming that I didn't know what was to be happening, that somehow someone else had an idea, there was some structure, that maybe I might be misspeaking, you know. But in the listening now, where we are in the conversation, sort of almost at the end of the hour, is where I feel like we're getting into this place of the depths of intimacy, which is what I had originally thought we were wanting to do, and I was thinking that maybe I didn't get it, but no, I think my original first thought was true, which is when we go deeper into the story, and the reason that we do that is so that we can feel a sense of collected awareness, that each of us contribute our part, not assuming anyone else's part. And that when I can be willing to risk that, then my heart is right here with you. My mind is clearly open. Flexibility to be able to be present with where the group needs to be. You know, we can kind of flow with the diversity of conversation. But when there's a story and then another story and another story, I miss the interconnectedness, and I'm easily confused. So I want to thank you all for sort of making it explicit, because it helped me to feel comfortable in my body, and I feel like the group has sort of come together.
I often see myself as a precipitant, chemically speaking. Whenever I open my mouth, things seems to be happening, not necessarily the way I'm thinking that it's going to happen, but definitely something happened. And it happened again today. I threw everybody for a loop, and that created a different avenue to reach where we are now. So on one hand, I'm apologizing for the shit that I brought in at the beginning. On the other hand, I'm so happy that I did, because it gave us the opportunity to go deeper into understanding the depths of our collective consciousness.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
It's really interesting because I haven't really participated other than, I mean, I feel really present and I felt like I've experienced everything with you. But I haven't spoken into the space yet today. And I just want to bring the awareness to the theme of belonging, because that's what I'm really observing. And the theme of Frankie, your story, and Tammy's experience, and Leticia, the way that you're living, and then also sort of creating a home environment where we can somehow control belonging. I'm thinking about what Tim was sharing about a sort of a worldview and then a group view. I was sort of thinking about arriving somewhere new and the dropping in process that happens, and the comfortability, and the finding one's place. So I don't know if I have a story or anything more than that, but I just wanted to bring that awareness to that theme.
I think one of the most beautiful threads of my travels and seeing, people's lives and being welcomed, and even all the challenges, absolutely including the challenges, is this sense of what becomes possible when we create the space to belong. I love that you brought that to the surface, because that's really it. We're all here on this beautiful planet, and how do we find a place of belonging and offer it for others, be it for people, be it, so that home is everywhere, and that is available for whoever we interface with, not because I'm tucked away and I've got walls around me, because that's proving that that's actually not the true home and the true sense of belonging, that it is going by the ways of nature and understanding that we're part of it. I spent all yesterday out on the grass because this little 4-year-old granddaughter of my host is so good at it. And it was like, wow, that's right. You can sit on the grass. I can spend the whole day on the grass, and talk about belonging. It's like, wow, put your fanny down on the earth and it's like, wow, there's a sense there that we don't allow ourselves, because we're managing. So I'm all for that. The sense of belonging is a core focus and presence throughout our day. And I feel like I got to share some of why I'm doing this thing, that often people just go like 150, wow, and it sits there, that this actually is some palpable experience of it. So I really appreciate everybody.
So I don't know if it's a good time, but we are actually coming up to the end of the hour. So we could, for that matter, reflect a little on how this worked.
I tend to agree with Tim that it worked, that it's working, that even if we're uncomfortable, it's still working. And no one left because we were uncomfortable. And I want to applaud everyone because that's very impressive.
Yeah, and it might work a little bit better if we didn't have the meta conversation all the way through the experiment.
I mean, maybe we should go straight for the uncomfortableness instead of trying to avoid it. And so, I mean, if it's there, let's get it right away.
I feel like we were able to feel some edges and to feel ourselves. And I'm not sure if what is present is uncomfortable. That's fine with me. I'm happy to be there. But I'm also really excited about feeling a deep sense of coherence and resonance with others that doesn't necessarily have to be uncomfortable. And just seeding that into this space.
Yeah, I feel like there was a good mid-sized elephant in the room today, and we pointed to that towards the end and really identified it, and that was a great learning experience.
Yeah, I sort of, I see us as a group of scientists, and this is our lab, our collective lab, where we meet, and not all the experiments work necessarily in the way that we have in mind, and there's a lot of minds here and a lot of hearts and a lot of beings, and we're experimenting with bringing all of those pieces together in a present way. And it's about the work. It's a practice. It feels like a practice of showing up together.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how it shows up in people's lives, and if the thread comes back into further conversations, that it's actually informing something in a way that we couldn't have anticipated that either. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm just going to put this out here because it's totally out of left field. But Ron, I'd love it if you were to post some of your music on the conversation experiments. And maybe we can also think about like posting some of our creativity and just some different ways that we can get to know what we're up to. Anyway, really excited to hear your music.
I can think of at least one thing I could post, and you might have to refresh my memory, Joachim, on where the URL is for it, but it's the theme for the cave exploration.
Oh, the Crystal Cave exploration.
That's kind of a nice piece of music. I think it would fit well in the community.
I'll find it. I'll go find it.
Probably post something. Thanks. I guess I would just add in our present context, I wasn't even going to talk, but now that I am, I will mention I was thinking of it. It's just a line from a John Frusciante song called Going Inside. And a student introduced me to that song into him, as often happens with the stuff I might listen to. And anyway, among several other lines that are in that song, one key line is, if anything unfolds, it's supposed to. So it had made a big impression on me, and it kind of makes things easier for me. So it always works. So certainly today worked. If anything unfolds, it's supposed to. So credit that to John Frusciante, formerly of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I just want to share the, oh, there it is. That's a bit of the tree I just wanted to introduce you to, but Lila's brought it to us. There's an amazing little oak tree in the background, and it's just, the leaves are so lush today.
Thanks, Lila.
Yeah, and these are those leaves. That's cool.
Cool. So this is what unfolded. It's perfect. This was the experiment. Thank you all for coming. And for what's next, there'll be a short planning session afterwards for whoever wants to stay. But otherwise, thank you for making it what it was, and hope to see you all the next time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Ciao.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.